All my childhood memories are with her.
Traditions and things have been lost.
And we take care of our elders in our community. We do. I don't know, it makes you more happy, unit, I think.
When I was younger, I really hated history. I found it really hard to connect with the teachers at school and didn't see myself reflected in the history I was being taught because it felt so far away and so old that it was really difficult for me to engage with. But in the past few years, that has completely shifted for me. I think now that people hold history in everything they do. It's in the way they walk, talk, cook, tell stories, make clothes. It's all passed up or passed down or passed around, and it's all history. So it's important to me to try to record as much of it as possible. In the African and Caribbean diasporas, holding on to our heritage is important now in this current social and political climate, maybe more than ever before. I sat down with women from the African and Caribbean community in Hastings to ask about the special people in their lives and have them share lessons and skills that they'd like to pass on through the generations.
My mum is important to me because she learned me all the skills that she was taught when she was a young girl in Jamaica. And one of them was dressmaking. And the way she taught me dressmaking was the old-fashioned way, as I called it, freehand. That you could look at a dress and just cut it. We love to get together, we love to share. And all that is passed down, I expect, from my mum and my parents. That unity, that skill in cooking. We don't have measuring or a scale or anything, but we know exactly how much to put in, how much water to put to the rice, how much, ingredients when we're seasoning the meat, what to use. All that is just passed down from generation to generation. And it's something that we really don't want to lose. And I've passed it on to my son and my daughters.
I feel that intergenerational relationships are very important in the fact that I was mainly brought up by my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. I would come home from school, my grandmother was always there, and there'd always be something nice for me. She'd make me milky coffee and there'd be biscuits on a plate, and it was just done very nicely. She was a very tolerant person, very caring, and she'd always engage me in her cooking, which I loved because I would just be at the kitchen table, hands in, doing whatever she was doing. And at that time, of course, every single meal was cooked. But she was the significant person in my life, really, because my mother worked when I was tiny, and so she was the main carer, and she was the one I adored, really, in every way. Yes.
I think probably the most important relationship I've had is my relationship with my gran. I feel like even me moving to the seaside, that's because my gran lives on the coast. I guess she's passionate about all of her grandchildren going back to Montserrat, and she's built a home for us there. And even when we weren't we didn't have a close relationship, I knew that was her commitment, and it was her commitment to us. And now that's in my soul and my heart, that I will go back and I'll live in Montserrat again, and yeah, she came here and she works so hard for us. Like, she just works so hard. You know, it's thanks to her that like I have the life that I have now, because she sacrificed everything. And yeah, she's built a paradise home for us in the jungle. The way that she thinks, and she's very creative, and she loves cooking and she loves hosting, and she's put that all down into me, I think. There was a moment we had a couple of years ago where I can't remember what I was moaning about, and she just laid it out for me, like, no one's gonna do anything for you. Like, you do it yourself. If you want that thing, you do it yourself. And she has been an example of that, like building her own security. I think she didn't have anyone to rely on, but that sense of agency and determination, I feel like she's passed on to me. It just really waked me up to the fact that I've got total agency to make my own life. And actually, I then came here and moved into this flat and got this space. So that was, yeah, really cool.
I have a really great relationship with a young woman from a different generation. She used to live with us, and even though she's like young enough probably to be my granddaughter, she's also a really good friend, and we really value her friendship. I mean, I kind of admired her stoicism and her kind of fearlessness, and she reminded me in some regard to my younger self, and this thought that just because you might stand up and speak in public that you're not shy, when actually she'd be like falling apart, but she'd feel the fear and do it anyway, and that's such a great thing to do. What's special about this person is she'll go, no, 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 no. But then she'll go away and she'll come back and she says, actually, I thought about that, and maybe it's possible. Or, you know, there's a sort of an exchange of ideas, there's an exchange of skills, and I think that's pretty much her philosophy. One of her philosophies for life is that even though things might be quite stressful and hard, you know, she doesn't often say, I can't do. You know, I think she's one of these who generally thinks, oh, this is something I'm working on. You know, very deep thinking.
The intergenerational thing, things that we've learned because of the circumstances, because my eldest daughter had a child, has never been able to look after her because of her own illness. I can only hope that by being there from her birth and caring for her and loving her, that, you know, I've given her the confidence and the strength. She's taught me about drum and bass. She did her thesis on drum and bass, and so whereas before I saw it as music, you know, reading her thesis and how, you know, you create this relationship with the audience and you build them up and you take them somewhere else and then you bring them down. So yes, I've learned drum and bass, and hopefully I've taught her about toots and the maytals, you know, so there's been mutuality with music. And I think also, having been brought up by my own grandmother, I know it's something that works. You know, it is not a problem, it is not a difficulty. It is also an experience that millions, actually I will say millions of people have experienced for generations. You know, I know a lot of my black friends, their parents may have come here and they would have been left with their grandparents. It's another traditional thing.
I think that there are some challenges that impact intergeneration connections, and I think a lot of them are to do with financial and professional and personal development. In terms of the professional development, there's been much noise for many years about the gender pay gap. However, people do not like to talk about the race pay gap. So if I leave school with GCSEs the same as my white colleague, the chances are we will be on a similar grade in the kind of jobs that we can be selected for or we can go for. If it becomes A-levels, then I understand that the gap is, or college, it's more like 18%. If it's a degree, so when my son leaves uni with the same degree as his white counterpart, over his lifetime, he could earn 24% less than his white counterpart. And lo, I mean, God, you get your master's or your PhD and that gap ends up at 40%. And then, of course, because that impacts financially, in terms of home ownership, or even having a secure base of a decent flat, a decent home, because if you haven't got a decent home, then it's going to impact on, emotional well-being and job prospects.
To me, it feels like health. I guess I'm still thinking of my gran in this context, as she's aging, and we're like all realizing that she's not, gonna be here forever, and her mind is slipping. I just feel this like sense of loss, like that the knowledge or her experience, the things that I've kind of took for granted, that I'll be able to find out at some point, like that opportunity's going now, and that was the same with my grandpa. I feel like age comes and it takes health really quickly when it starts, and you don't prepare yourself for it, and then it's there, and you realise like how much you've taken for granted, I think. But yeah, I feel like the health of my gran and that deteriorating is like, yeah, definitely feels like it's a disruptor in the insight and knowledge. She's like my live ancestor. So yeah.
As well as there being nobody who looked like me, I was given nothing of a Caribbean culture at all. They knew nothing. I was brought up on English food. I was brought up on a sort of working class attitudes. And so I had no reference whatsoever. And it was only when I was coming up for 30, I think, that I actually decided this, I'm obviously not going to get this from anybody else. I've got to go and look for it. It's not going to come to me from my family. One of the feelings that I had then, and I still carry, I think, is wondering if one is accepted. Because I don't have any cultural references, and I have been brought up in a totally white environment with totally white views, which included racism, of course, that I sometimes think, although my friends are very mixed and, I can go from whichever culture, I always wonder if I'm accepted because I can't bring with me the experiences and the culture that my black friends have by being brought up, in a particular way. I mean, a lot of the black friends I've got in London, I used to go around to their family homes and be taught how to cook certain things and to eat certain things, and and they make fun, but it was done in a loving way, because obviously not my fault. Nobody asks for that, but there is still a lingering thought of when I am in in a black community, am I accepted in that black community because I know nothing of the culture whatsoever? So it doesn't isolate me, but it just makes me feel I wish I'd got more. I mean, I did go to Trinidad. I did manage to do that for myself and go and spend quite a lot of time there. And that was staying with a friend's mum. So again, it was learning just how people lived on a daily basis. There are, yes, differences because of society often creates those differences, or the elements because of the weather and things like that. But there are some basic principles. Everybody breaks bread together, and it doesn't matter in where you're doing it, but we all come together, and join in that process.
We always say all nation family, because the motto of Jamaica is out of many come one. I looked after my mum and she passed away in my home. And I'm hoping that my kids would one day see that family unity, that family love, that family that you must respect your elders. You must look after your elders because you've got to know where you're coming from to know where you're going. You must know your history, and in that way you can pave the way for the future.
If I could pass on one skill or one lesson to future generations, I would just say, please just be yourself, believe in yourself, and go, just go after what you believe in. If you're that way inclined in building things, you go ahead and build things. You might be 4 or 5 years old, you do that. Don't let anybody tell you you can't wear that dress just because you got a penis. Just do whatever your heart desires, to hurt no one, and just go for making your own secure base.
I suppose learning to believe in yourself. And I don't just say believe in yourself, because that doesn't just happen like that. You have to learn how to believe in yourself. And that's a process that you're going through all your life, I think. Because society will then put other issues around you. So that's where I say you have to learn to be able to transcend some of those views and values that are imposed upon you and still come out strongly. Enable that, allow that, be prepared for that to be a lifelong process, because that's hopefully what it is, that it, you're able to learn and develop and grow from day one till the end.
I just would like to say, let's live together as one, and let's live together in peace and harmony. Don't think that because my skin is different, that I'm different from you. I breathe and eat and sleep just like you. And just look at it that we're moving forward in this world. We're not going backwards. We want to move forward. We want to embrace the future. And we don't want any things from the past to follow us on into the future. Not that we're going to forget the past, But we've got to sometimes put it down and put it aside and say, yes, that happened. Yes, it was very upsetting, but let's embrace the future for our children and the next generation. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you so much.
I think maybe it's just this to remind everybody that our ancestors are here, and that with every step we take, they're here supporting us, and you know, to wake up to the fact that we're held. It's like it needs to be a bit of a rallying call at the moment, because I think the external context feels very oppressive and very scary. So yeah, remembering that we're rooted in our ancestors and that they're holding us up and that they're totally for us, they love us, they've got our back. It's like there's like your guardian angels to go forward. So I guess that would be the only thing I want people to remember when they watch this.